a modern samurai.
Hi, Ryan Hayashi here. I see an entire generation of younger men and women between the ages of around 15 and 35 who are lacking purpose, looking for their own role within society and trying to figure out how to get to where they think they want to be. I'm going to share with you some of my experience. I'm a person who happens to be happy as measured by everyone I've met in my life so far, who's done well in his own chosen fields, and also who has done a great amount of speaking so far in the past. I'm now 50 years old, and I spent the last 30 years on a very consistent path. This video you're looking at now is going to disappear very soon. It's just a test. I'm talking about days. I want to measure how many people actually watch this, how many people are interested, look at the questions. So thanks to the YouTube analytics, I can look at who's watching me from around the world. I'm producing this same video in both languages, English and German. I can see, of course, how many people watch the video. I can look at the watch time and see how long you watch this video until you get bored and decide to watch something else. And most importantly, the most direct feedback, if you'd like to communicate with me, is in the comments below. Let me know what you think of this video, please. It would be much appreciated. And any questions or comments you would have. I've been hearing for the last several years that I should go a step beyond just speaking. I've done speakers conferences in London, England, Washington, D.C., San Diego, Houston, Texas, based on my own journey as a magician and a television martial artist and my apparently very old-fashioned way of the samurai mode of thinking. This is what I'd like to share with you now in this and a series of a few test videos just to see how the resonance is, because I'm now thinking about taking it beyond personal and online coaching and actually offering a series of video coaching units that people can benefit from. I hope so. A lot of other people are offering this depending on their area of expertise. And a lot of people have been asking me for this in the last few years. This is a test. Let's see if anyone's interested. Now let's go into the cool walking intro. Yo! What's up, everyone? Ryan Hayashi here. Do you care what people think of you? Should you? Does it actually affect your performance and what you produce in life? Have you ever heard of the Pygmalion effect? This, in my opinion, is an important psychological phenomenon you should know about. How other people view you will actually affect the reality of who you are and what you can do. Let's sit down and have a talk. Thank you for joining me. Let's talk about the Pygmalion effect. The Pygmalion effect is how others view you and the surprisingly scary correlation on how it has an actual effect on the real performance that you deliver. The name comes from the play Pygmalion by George Bernard Shaw, written in 1914. And it's a story about a professor of linguistics who, I read this back in high school, so my memory has to go back 30 plus years, how he made a bet with one of his upper class British buddies. I believe it was London, England in the year 1912. And he was talking about how a person's accent, dialect, and language determines how they are perceived and their role in life and their possibilities within society. And he made the claim that he could take anyone and through language coaching and giving them an upper class dialect and way of speaking and mannerisms could take them to any high society party and fool everyone. So the two gentlemen, they made a bet on a certain amount of money, and the professor's buddy said, well, take that girl right there. There was a poor flower girl, a girl living in the streets selling flowers for very little money, who
was then brought into his home by the professor. He told his servants to burn her clothes, give her a new dress. He would then give her language instruction. And she said, "What for? I'm not paying for a language I already talk. I can talk English." And he said, "No, you're going to learn to talk the way I teach you." And he turned her into a lady, then brought her into high society events, and everyone was convinced she was a princess from a privileged background. In the 80s, they loosely based the movie Pretty Woman on this storyline, with Richard Gere playing some successful businessman or lawyer, and Julia Roberts playing the, underprivileged street girl that he fell in love with. And they also made a 1950s version of this story, which they called My Fair Lady. So it's a classic story, but that's where the name came from. It's a very true thing that how people view you will quite often, to a large degree, determine or influence the outcome. Now, let me give you a few concrete examples. They ran an experiment in one of the American universities where they had large auditoriums of some hundreds of students fill the seats, and they had 3 different audiences brought in to listen to the same speaker give the same presentation. The first audience was just told, well, listen, the prof wants everyone to listen to this guy for some reason. He knows the guy's boss. He wants to be able to present this somewhere. And he was basically presented as nobody special. Audience 2, they were told, listen to this guy. He's very confident within this field. He knows what he's talking about. And audience number 3, they were told, this is one of the world's leading experts. And he is a top name. He's a genius in this field. Listen to what he has to present. And then afterwards, the audience members were asked to describe the presentation they just saw. Not surprisingly, first audience said the guy was okay. Second audience said, well, it was pretty good. Third audience said, mind-blowing. It was an honor to meet this gentleman. He's a genius, top mind, blah, blah, blah. I actually tried this out myself because I believe I was 20 or 21. And I at that point was very interested in learning better communication skills, presentation, body language. And I read in one book on body language about a similar experiment in which they took, I can't remember if it was one young actor or 3 actors of similar age and looks. Not that it matters. And they dressed one in an expensive business suit. They dressed the second in casual, regular guy clothes. And they dressed the other guy looking like he was homeless, living on the streets begging for money. And they asked all 3 gentlemen to walk around. It was a highly populated area, a busy downtown street in a major city, might have been an international airport, and had the gentlemen beg for change, make up a story and ask people for money. And the results were surprising, because the person who looked like he needed it the most, the guy looking poor, all 3 of them were university students. He made the least money. After a day's begging, I think it was something like $50. The regular guy made $150, something like that. And the guy in the business suit, everybody gave him money. It was huge in comparison. It was something like $400 he made for walking around asking people for some small amounts of money. And I thought about this. I wonder why. Now, they explained in this particular book, because people react better to well-dressed people. It's a sign of authority. It's a sign of resources. But I wanted to check it out for myself. I looked young, because if I was around 20, I probably looked a couple years younger, like some high school kid. When I was 20, I kind of looked 18. But I put on the best suit I had at the time, because I was always a suit guy. I loved suits. Obviously, at age 20, I only had a couple of ties and one suit, but I invested. I tried to look my best. And I borrowed, I think from one of my roommates, it was like what he probably had like audio cassettes in there, something. I just emptied it out and walked around with what looked like a banker's leather briefcase. It was empty, just sort of looked like I was a younger banker or businessman in Canada's capital city of Ottawa, so plausible. And I asked people for money, just telling them that I'd forgotten my wallet, I needed to get something, bus fare, a sandwich, and people gave me a fair amount of money. I didn't, cheat or give outward lies claiming to be something I wasn't. I just asked if people could help me out with some money, and they did. I've not done it since. It was a social experiment. Only time in my life I've asked strangers for money. But it was proof to me that this does actually work. As a performer who has, I perform events, I've performed theater shows, I've performed on television. I know appearance has a great effect on how people perceive you. This is the Pygmalion effect, being aware of the image you have. Now, what does this mean for you? Well, you have to decide on your own path, your own goals and targets, and your own image. If you want to be seen as a dangerous badass who wants to head a security guard company, you don't have to look like a banker. If you want to be a banker, you may not want to look like some rough rock and roll dude. You know what I'm saying. Depending on your own specific goals, think about how people perceive you, because this will have an effect on how they treat you. Now, let's get to Ryan Hayashi's do's and don'ts. Starting with the don'ts. My advice, don't just say, I am my own person and the rest of the world has to accept me as I am. Even world leaders, British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher had to have vocal coaches coach her for her own public speeches because she had too high-pitched a voice and it was annoying. She had to be taught to lower her voice and sound more like an authoritative and competent and confident politician. So don't just be lazy and say, I dress the way I dress, I walk the way I walk, I talk the way I talk, because it is important. The only exception is if you're one of those, let's say, people who really works on their own in their pajamas and humans don't see you. Okay, then I guess that's a valid argument. But if you are seen by people, heard by people, think about the way they feel about you when they see you and they hear you. So now we get to Ryan Hayashi's tips. What should you do to work on this? Videotape yourself. If you enter my name in YouTube, you'll see material from me dating back to 1987. My first appearance in Japanese television from the year 1999. And regular television performances as an artist since 2008. So I've been looking at myself on camera, listening to my voice, my speaking style, for years, decades. Of course, I didn't sound like this when I was an 18-year-old kid. I had to learn how to sound like this. I had to identify what makes certain speakers sound powerful. How do they speak? What do they do that really gives weight and power to their words when they give a speech or a presentation? And now in today's modern society with content creators, this is more important than ever. So if you speak to people or you generate any content or material with your face, your voice, learn this by videotaping yourself. Record yourself and watch yourself speaking in different situations. Speaking into the camera, speaking off camera, speaking to an empty wall, speaking to a person, speaking to a group of people, sitting, standing. Listen to the quality of your voice. Where is it coming from? Is it coming down deeper here? Or is that a high pitch coming through your nose? Do you sound hectic and nervous and talking too fast? Or do you sound calm and confident? Are you breathing in between your words? Are you comfortable with silent pauses? Without Get it on video, analyze it, think about it. That's the best possible advice I can give you as the first step. And then you can work on body language, projection, stage presence, confidence, voice. Those are all important steps.